This first-time feature from co-directors Brooke Driver and Finn Bruce, written by Driver, is a British mockumentary set in the competitive world of vegetable growing competitions, in which suspicions of cheating and foul play taking place leads to an escalation of events which lead to political corruption, kidnapping and attempted murder. If all that sounds a little crazy, well it is, and joyously so. Caroline, played by the ever-excellent Jo Hartley, finds herself disqualified for a marrow growing competition due to a claimed imperfection in the marrow. Believing that the judging panel were paid off, when her next batch of marrows are stolen, she hires a pair of swinging detectives who host swinging parties, played by Aisling Bea and Ray Fernan, to investigate, whilst her close friends, Paul, played wonderfully by Richard Lumsden, a conspiracy nut who fears every knock on the door will be the TV licence people, and Willie, played by Celine Jones, a neighbour who caught the theft on camera, help Caroline uncover the truth of the events. As the film plays out, the events spiral further and further out of control in hilariously unpredictable ways. The false documentary style here works so well, and there's a clear inspiration from the marvellous works of Christopher Guest with films such as Best in Show. Similar to those films that came before, in here we have a wide array of eccentric characters that surround the lead, who provide the sometimes bizarre, sometimes subtle humour, whilst Hartley as Caroline gets to mostly play things straight, and even adds in touches of emotional drama at times, with a stellar performance that makes it impossible to not care for Caroline's simple struggle. Right from the start, as the documentary filmmaker introduces the setup, the comedy nerve is given a nudge with a cutaway to a couple of her friends who are going to help on the film, who we are then assured won't be appearing in the rest of it. And that set me chuckling right off the bat, and I barely stopped chuckling throughout the film. The sharp humour of the screenplay is aided by the cast delivering it, and a few moments of inspired improvisation land equally well, making for one of those films that you occasionally find yourself giggling so much that you miss the next few lines, ensuring that there's going to be a repeat viewing sometime soon. Lumsden, as Paul in particular, steals some of the best laughs, with his obsession with conspiracies regularly being proven wrong in the most deftly hilarious manners. Some quick cutaways to random background characters add to the mix to make certain that every opportunity for a chuckle is taken. Running at just over an hour and a half, it feels tight, it feels fun, and it never drags. By the end of the film, I wasn't entirely sure what the heck had just transpired, but I did know that I enjoyed every moment of it. Even the opening title sequence, which was an overproduced, bombastic barrage of music and visuals in an almost brass eye-like manner, was inspired brilliance of comedy. The end result is a much-needed breath of comedy fresh air from the British market, and indeed one of the funniest films I've seen in general over the past few years. Well and truly recommended for a good time, especially if you see it with a packed audience at a cinema. Fran, played by Daisy Ridley, is a painfully introverted worker in an office environment who starts to connect with a newcomer to the office, all the while her own social awkwardness building walls to prevent her from getting too close, in this lightly comedic drama from Rachel Lambert. Surrounded by other workers who are more than comfortable with the typical social small talk engagements that go on in life, no matter how otherwise embarrassing most of that chatter would be, Fran's life in her cubicle is one of silence and as little human engagement as she can manage to get away with, instead spending her time poring over spreadsheets and daydreaming of isolation through death. She isn't actively depressed or suicidal. She just longs for the isolated solitude of being dead in a forest or on a piece of flotsam on a beach somewhere where nobody can find her. But the entering presence of David Mergy as Robert threatens to draw Fran out of herself for the first time and starts her struggle with being comfortable enough with herself to be comfortable enough with another person. Anyone who has any degree of social anxiety and awkwardness will absolutely identify with Fran here, and those who have no personal experience of it will hopefully see from this film that those who seem weird and quiet are not deliberately distant. They just don't know what to say and somewhat overthink things too much in fear of ridicule. This is demonstrated early on in the film when Fran is asked to write something on the card of a co-worker who's leaving, scanning over the passages and witty messages made by others, contemplating what to add, before writing a simple, happy retirement instead. The sentiment is right, but the fear of saying the wrong thing forces Fran to take the safe option. Ridley, as Fran, is an absolute marvel here, And without much dialogue, indeed, for around the first 20 minutes, she doesn't utter a single word, as those around her chatter incessantly about trivial things. She draws us in to the essence of who Fran is. There's no malice, no hatred of the world around her, just simple awkwardness that makes her remain in her comfort zone of silence. It's only when she unexpectedly connects with Robert, initially via office desktop chat exchanges about ordering supplies, that Fran starts to think about opening up, although she then struggles with knowing what to open up about that would sound interesting. It's a wonderfully melancholic approach that is complemented by a visual approach to the filmmaking, with some shots being majorly off-centre in the framing. The pair of characters pushed to the lower corner of the screen, with barely anything of interest dominating the frame, itself capturing the isolated nature of introverts, asking you to look away as we stumble to fit in. It's a smart visual choice that really connects with the essence of who Fran is. Charming, melancholic, sometimes witty, and absolutely relatable to so many of us. Sometimes I Think About Dying shines a spotlight on what it means to be introverted and the fight to be allowed to not have to engage in small talk, with a central performance that shows that Ridley is a much better actor than the toxic fandom online want to believe. Well and truly recommended viewing.